Tuesday night, Parashas Shmois, or the Yudches Tevis, Tovshin Pei Beis. There's one topic of Achnoah and Kirvas Elikim that we didn't discuss yet, and it's very important to designate a full shir for this part of the topic of Kirvas Elikim. The previous Parashas Vayechi, we know, Rashi says, Yaakov Avinu wanted to reveal the time when Mashiach is going to come. Bikish Yaakov legalis esaketz. And Hashem didn't want. And Shechina went away, and Yaakov Avinu understood that he can't now reveal the time when Golus is going to end, and he just gave brachas to his children, to the Shvatim. Now, if Yaakov Avinu wanted to tell the Shvatim, reveal when Mashiach is going to come, it means that Yaakov Avinu felt it's important. Yaakov Avinu knew that the Yidden are going to be in Golus, and they need to know. They need to have the chizik of Emunah. They should know there's a date. When a person knows that there's a date, it gives them that clarity. There's a date, there's a chasana, there's a date. That's what's going to happen. Of course, I'm sure about it. And that's what could potentially keep Yidden in Golus with such chizik, with such emunah, knowing for sure that Mashiach is going to come. They even know when. But the Shechina didn't want. And the Shechina went away, and Yaakov understood that the Ratzon Hashem is that Yidden and Golus should not know when Mashiach is going to come. And that means that it's important, in order for Golus to be Golus, then they couldn't know when it's going to finish. Every day in Golus, if a person knows when they're going to leave the Golus, then it takes away, then it's not the same darga, it's not the same strength, the Golus, because they know that they're going to leave the Golus. And Hashem said, it's part of the Golus, so you should have a munah that it definitely pocket yivkoi, that Hashem is going to take you out of Golus, but I can't tell you when. There's a Rashi in Masechtas Psochim. The Gemara brings the Masechtas Psochim Daf Nun Dalet. The Gemara says, Shivu dvorim uchusim ibnei Adam. The 7 things that Hashem hides from people they shouldn't know. The first on the list is Yom HaMisa. Nobody knows when their last day is. It's a secret. And the second on that list is Yom HaNechoma. What does it mean, Yom HaNechoma? So Rashi says that it's going on the individual person. Every person, their issues that they have, it's simple Rashi, Masechtas Psochim Nun Dalet, the situation that you're going through, when is this situation going to finish? How long is this going to be going on? A day, a month, a year, 2 years? I just want to know. I'm fine. I just want to know when. It's mechusin b'bnei Adam. You don't know Mosai Yisnachim Midagosai. Dagosai is what he's worried about, and when is it going to finish? When is he going to have nechama from this daige, from this situation, the hardship?
Does that mean it will for sure finish? If you don't know when it is?
If a person doesn't know when, then does it mean that it will for sure? Well, we can't say in each situation, in any situation we have avtocha, because we don't. On the Golus of Klal Yisrael, we know because Hashem said, and that's part of our emunah. But a person's situation, they don't know. And they're not knowing when. And let's add what you said, that in most cases, people don't really know if. They don't know if. That is one of the main parts of a Golus. That's the main part. And it's in the essence from the Bria, from the creation, because the Gemara says, Hashem created mankind. The same way that everybody understands that the fact that people don't know when their last day is going to be is very part of life. It's like that is the design of this world, that's how it goes. With the same strength, Yom HaNechoma, which sometimes people think, no, this is like my private thing, it's fine, I just want to know. You just tell me, when should I come back? No. It's with the same strength. I don't know. A person doesn't know, can't know. And it's a very big yisoid. What's the pshat? Why is it like that? The Dubno Maggid says an interesting explanation. Dubno Maggid explains, because Golus, any type of hardship, is only the first part one of a geula. It's trying to bring out something from the choshech, from the darkness comes the light. Now if Hashem wants to bring to the person, give the person full light, that means in full color, then the darkness has to be in full color. Now if a person would know when they're reaching the end, they would know that, okay, we're the last week of it and then we're done. Like people felt many times through this corona crisis, okay, it's just another couple of weeks and then it's finished and everything's just going to open up. Then what happens is that, let's say the last few days, you're just dancing around. You're saying, okay, tomorrow's Tuesday. We're going to be done. And then the darkness is partial. And then the light is going to be with the same behetem. I mean, the corresponding. The light is going to be the same way. So that's why Hashem said, it's choshech, now it's choshech. The guy said, can I just have a light? No, you can't have a light. Sometimes a person is in the middle of fasting, and they forgot that they're fasting, and they're hungry, and they walk in, and they're like, oh, that's so tempting. Oh, no, you can't. You're in the darkness, and you just ask someone, could you just please help me? No. That's really what's happening to us in the darkness. We wish and we hope, why can't I just know that this is going to happen? Because if you know, then it's not the game anymore. And it's really tough, and that was the idea. That means, in any case, when there's a couple waiting to have children, and there's a person waiting for a shidduch, this is one of the biggest, deepest hardships that there is. That if they would just know, that's the sentence. If I would just know, then I'm fine. I could be 32 and not get engaged, but could you just promise me that I should just know when or bachlal? The person is in the dark. That is what we call in the dark. It's really in the dark. It's not pleasant. Bachlal not pleasant. And the same as, like we said, so many years a couple's waiting for children. It's so depressing only because constantly there's the fight, constantly. Maybe it's never going to happen. Maybe it's never going to happen. Now we're supposed to understand Hashem is a Tov U'Meitiv. And if Hashem decided that a couple should be waiting, God forbid, 15 years, let's say that was the decision. So why can't Hashem just tell me? Hashem is a Tov U'Meitiv. I'm fine. A person says, I'm fine with that decision. I'll cope. But why couldn't you just tell me that it's going to be 15 years and then, I don't know, I'll go out for a career, I'll do something and I'll get back for 15 years. I'm fine. But it teaches us something. It really teaches us something. And we just mentioned two nisyonis. There's a lot of nisyonis out there. A lot of nisyonis. Really tough nisyonis. If it's people that are not well, and we don't know. They're trying this treatment. Right now they're trying this treatment and they hope, and the doctors are telling you it's 50-50. Doctors are telling you, listen, we're going to see. It's a process. It's going to take 16 months. It's going to be this every week, twice and 3 times. Nobody knows. And they're just going and spending all the money. Ton of money. Spending all the money on transportation. And all the hardships and not knowing nowhere, nothing. You don't know where you're going. You have no idea where you're going. You're hoping for the best. You don't know if you should be hoping for the best. You're like juggling the whole time. Maybe I should just give up. No, I'm not going to lay in bed depressed. I'm just going to decide in my mind that there's and a person doesn't know what is he supposed to do. What the ikar nakuda is, why is it like that? But first we know that was the plan. Hashem wants it to be like that. So we learn this Dubna Magid, and the Dubna Magid tells us, because the light that Hashem wants to bring you after this darkness, Hashem is infinite, Hashem wants to give you the light to the max, and it's not possible to give you the light to the max if the dark wasn't to the max. You close the window shades and you have to make sure. It shouldn't be dimmed, it should be dark. You shouldn't be seeing where you're going. That's the idea of darkness.
And just to follow up on Yaakov's question, in there are cases where it doesn't happen in Olam Hazeh, the light. Right. But that means that the light that comes after Olam Hazeh.
In the case that it doesn't happen in Olam Hazeh, in a lot of cases it doesn't end up happening in Olam Hazeh. Well, you said, first of all, that of course we believe and we know that it's going to happen in Olam Haba. But more than that, and that's what's important here, is that we're learning in the last couple of shiurim that there is a light. There is a light in Olam Hazeh. Not a light of specifically this happening, like what you were expecting to happen, but a very, very, very deep pleasure of Kirvas Elikim, which is in the end of that tunnel. And high madrega of a lot of things, which is pleasure. It's not only a madrega and avodas Hashem, it's also the pleasure of closeness to Hashem. And we're going to get to that. B'siyat al-Shmai, in this year, we're going to get to that. But I'm just going to mention it before we go to continue with this year. There's a famous story of Rebbe Meir Shechter. Soll sein gesund und stark. What was the story to Rebbe Meir Shechter? Rebbe Meir Shechter, while he was engaged, he was told that his wife had a nervous breakdown and there's nothing to go further. I mean, he should just break up. And he said, Mutiv, that's what he said. He said, you're not supposed to embarrass someone, and even if it means jumping into the fire. So I guess this is called jumping into the fire. I'm not going to embarrass her, I'm not leaving go to Shidduch. And he didn't have one good day. Not even one good day. And it was by decision. It was knowing what he's in for, and it was hard, and his children weren't normal, and nothing, absolutely nothing live, and she would be able to scream and throw things. It was everything that you could imagine, or rather maybe you shouldn't imagine. And Rebbe Meir said he didn't regret it one day, because if it's kivshan ha'esh, then that's how it is when you jump into fire. That's what it is. He wasn't expecting it. But we all know, and he's one of the people that it's good to go see, that is such a yid in this generation. Hashem should give him arichus yom v'shonim. The simchas achayim, and the madregis that he reached, and the pleasure that he reached in Kirvas Elikim. And this is what we call a tzaddik. That's the idea. That's the idea. He really went through the hard way. And it's not a path that every person is supposed to take. Of course not. Every person has their journey in life, but it's just explaining what we're talking about. He reached such pleasure, and he reached such madrega, and such simchas achayim, and such everything in life, that Hashem paid him back in this world also. That's what even though nothing happened, his wife wasn't till her last day, nothing changed, but the light came.
The Chazon Ish describes such pleasure in his igros, even though objectively he had a very, very difficult life.
Yes, the Chazon Ish is another example. He explains it. The Chazon Ish had such a rich way of writing. His literature was amazing. He knew how to express, and he had it every single day. Such a beautiful, beautiful light, and he had a miserable life. The Chazon Ish had a miserable life, but it wasn't miserable. It wasn't be'emes, not miserable. Tangible. It wasn't miserable. Now we are supposed to know that there isn't two Torahs, one for tzaddikim and one for simple people. Chazon Ish, and then to long years, Rabbi Meir Shechter, what are you bringing me here? We're just simple people. Of course, we're simple people, but the Torah is the same, and the journey is the same, and the levels in closeness to Hashem and in pleasure, they're all types of levels, and it just works. And here, we're continuing on and understanding this a little bit better and deeper. If a person, we said before, it wouldn't be total darkness, but even more than that, if a person would know what the plan is and he knows where he's going, there wouldn't be that achno, that the humility that happens when a person doesn't know where he's going. He can't make any plans. He's forced, because a person is in limbo, he's forced to just leave go. What's going to be tomorrow? I don't know. Then he says, then you know something? Maybe I don't wish I would know. I don't know. We'll see where Hashem takes me. And slowly, that creates the feeling that Hashem wanted of total hachno, and that creates the kirvas elikim, and that's why a person never knows when and if. A person doesn't know. The geula shlema, we know that it will happen. Sometimes a person also, or a tzaddik, a real tzaddik gives a bracha to a person and a promise, and the person knows that one day he's going to have a Yeshua, and he has a emunah, and that's like, it's an avodah, because he's believing, because Hashem said you're supposed to be, a tzaddik tells you something, you should have emunah tzaddikim, or a certain type of nevuah, as a person knows, he knows one day. But a person, when, he definitely doesn't know. But they have the chizuk, they have the simcha, but they're in the dark. They're in full darkness. And that brings them to full achnoah, and that full achnoah brings them to the full light of that pleasure of kirvas elikim. But this, in a certain sense, was only an introduction to the main topic of the shir. it's an important piece, but we're trying to get to the next step, and that is very important to know that in Kirvus Elikim itself, that pleasure that we're describing, that person feels so elevated and feels like close to Hashem and all that, that on its own is also a geula. That is already the light. And if that's the light, that teaches us that a person cannot know, cannot expect when he's going to feel that sense of closeness to Hashem. So many people are struggling, suffering, especially if it's physical suffering, which is very, very hard. And they are fully nichna, that's what they feel. They don't have anything, and they trust in Hashem, and they thank Hashem every day for their hardships. And they don't feel that sense of kirvus elikim, of closeness to Hashem. And it's so painful that sometimes it's even more painful than the suffering that they're going through. Because not only I'm suffering, I'm not getting anywhere. Maybe I'm even doing averis because it hurts me. Because I heard in the shir that if I would be nichna, then I would have a certain pleasure. I don't know what he's talking about, because I never had that. Or maybe I had it sometimes, but most of the times it's tough, and it stays tough, and it's going on day after day, year after year, and it's so tough. And I'm not feeling any closeness to Hashem. What am I doing wrong? Even more than that, so many times, because a person is in a certain situation, they technically can't daven. And they don't have the ability to be able to connect. Sometimes they're lying in bed. Sometimes they have physical pain. Sometimes it's situations that don't allow them to have 1 second of Yishuv Das. So many times they're just running, and that's what they're supposed to be doing. I mean, that's what's happening. The tzora itself is causing them not to be able to daven. And they're not reaching that level of kirvus elikim, that closeness. And what are they supposed to be doing? And it's so painful. And so what does it mean? That person is like totally off? The answer is no. It doesn't mean that person is totally off. You know why? And here's the secret. The same way a person doesn't know when they're going to be able to be released from prison or any other situation that they're in, same exact way a person doesn't know when he's going to feel the closeness of kirvus elikim. You cannot say, I will do this and this, even if you're going to do Torah, if you're going to do Hachno, that will bring you. But you don't know when, and you can't have the handle on it to be able to control that. This is Sfas Emes in Parshas Vayeshev. The Sfas Emes says that Shabbos is called Nachala. Nachala means inheritance. That means a Yerusha. It's yours. It goes from father to son. And then Shabbos is called a matana. We know Moshe Rabbeinu came to the Yidden. I have a matana. Hashem said matana to v'yesh le'v'ez genozeh. So Sfas Emes explains an amazing idea, means a concept. So Shabbos is Yerusha, Shabbos is matana. Every person gets Shabbos. You're a Yid, so you are supposed to, you're mechuyev, you're obligated to keep Shabbos, and you're connected to Shabbos in a certain level of it. But it doesn't mean that you got the present of Shabbos. The matana of Shabbos needs a different level of closeness to Hashem. And what is that? So the Sfas Emes says it's very simple. A child, gets Yerusha. So being that you are a son of Hashem, that's what you are. You're Bnei Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. So you got Shabbos. The level of Shabbos, which is Nachla, which is Yerusha, you got it. Now, Matana, not necessarily you got the Matana of Shabbos, the present of Shabbos, which means the feeling of Shabbos, the closeness to Hashem, or all that. It doesn't mean you got it. Who gets presents? As Sfas Emes says, I'll tell you. Someone that's very, very loyal. A eved, a worker, that comes and stays after hours and means it. That means just makes sure that nothing goes wrong and does it with his whole heart. Such kind of people get real presents, not just, Purim, what everybody gets, you just buy for cheap 150 pieces and you give out. No, you buy. They get a real present, because the the Odoin, the owner really appreciates it. And he understands what does it mean that he's giving himself away when it's easy, when it's hard. The guy also has a family. Yeah, but he's connected to the business, and I can rely on him. He really means it. So, Eved gets a matana. So the Sosema says that this closeness, this kirvus elikim, that comes when a person serves Hashem like a Eved, which means when things are not easy and when they don't feel. They're not feeling anything, but they're just day in, day out. They're checking in. They're davening, they're learning, they're doing what they're supposed to. But here is the real tricky part comes now. Eved gets a matana, but you can't, what does it mean a present? The idea of a present is, you can't knock on the door and say, can I please have a present? I'll tell you what I need. Tell you exactly what I need. And please, if you could please deliver it before 5 p.m. because I'm just going to be leaving. You can't ask for that present and expect that present and beg for it. You could do that, but then it's not a present. Then it's something else. A present means by surprise because of the essence of what a present is. That means you're going your way and Hashem comes and Hashem says, you know something? I want to show you my appreciation. I decided, you just walk into the office and one day you see flowers and a nice note. What's today? It's Hanukkah, no. It's Purim, no. What's today? So you open up the letter. And the letter says, I must tell you, a week ago I felt that you did something I really, really appreciated. I just want to show you. A token of appreciation. That's a real present. All the rest is just formal. That's called a real present. When Hashem gives kirvus elikim, Shabbos is a form of kirvus elikim. Hashem gave us a day that He wants to spend with us. He wants to be close with us. But the part of Shabbos, which is the feeling of kirvus elikim, you can't control that. You can't expect it to say, okay, between 7 and 7:05, I think I'm going to start feeling it. It doesn't work like that. And that is not only Shabbos. People think that they're going to marry off their child, they're going to get so emotional, and they prepare, and it doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. You know why? Because they prepared for it. It's not something that it's possible for a person to just turn on and say, okay, now he orders, please give me this and this feeling, 10 plus, add some sugar. It doesn't work like that. You should be Eved, and then you just go, and all of a sudden you have a feeling of closeness to Hashem. And it comes and it goes, and that is in return for someone that's an Eved to Hashem. And that explains why a lot of people don't feel that feeling. Sometimes that is their galus. Hashem took it away from them. We mentioned it, and I mention it again. It's quoted in the Hagdama to the Sefer Noitzer Chesed from the Kamarna Rebbe. It's a Sefer on Pirkei Avos. And the Hagdama, in the introduction, he says that all of the tzaddikim, Hashem took away from them their feelings, and their feelings of closeness to Hashem, and Hashem tested them. They should serve Hashem. Just was dry. They just came in, they did it, and they were people that knew that they're missing something. They knew that this is not it, and they felt what's happening and guilty and the whole 9 yards, the whole thing. And what happens? And they just continued on. And for the schar, one nice day it went away. Every tzaddik with their story, how they regained that gerus elokim. The Baditcher Verov, it's famous. Baditcher Verov was the peak of emotional tzaddik that we know about. Of course, there were many tzaddikim, but as an example of a tzaddik that served Hashem with such emotion, with such kirvus elikim, every davening, he went totally out of his boundaries and danced and everything. And for a year and a half, he felt nothing. He says, I took a small little siddur, I just said word for word. I tried to say the idea, what does every word mean, the pirush amidas of the word, and that's all he had. Now, when it happens to a tzaddik, one davening, you know how much tshuva he does? He's like, whoa, this is terrible. I'm like a real balavega. How does this happen to me? I daven and I didn't daven. I came to the shul and didn't daven. So tomorrow, Met Hashem, and goes and mikveh and learns and everything, and zilch. You know what happens after a year? Forget it. It's like a lost case. I don't know when it's going to come back. I have no idea when it's going to come back. Because an Eved, that's a separate part of Achno which a person needs, which is not necessarily connected to the topic of Yisurim. You don't need to have Yisurim. It doesn't have to be a person should have to go through physical pain or specific suffering that we could quote, this guy is going through this guy going through this. No. A person that has this achno of being like an Eved, of continuing just again and again and again, that's the idea. And we find, and that's what's interesting, that every type of geula of kibbutz elakim comes with hesach hadas. Hesach hadas means that we don't know when, and we're not ready for it. We're not ready for it. The Mashiach, the Gemara says in Sanhedrin, Mashiach will come by hesach hadas, which means the Gemara explains it. The guy is going to be in a store, and a person is going to be carrying stuff. Everybody's going to be driving a car. Mashiach came. Regular day, midday, not Sunday. The working days. Yeah, it's going everything hustling. Whoop, Mashiach came. That's what the Gemara describes it. Now it's interesting. Like why? What's the idea? The idea is that, like we explained from the beginning of the Shir, Golus means you're in total darkness. You don't know what, when, where. You don't know. So you just continue. That's the idea. You just continue. As long as you continue, you'll be there. You won't miss it. But the guy that shows up only on Yom Kippur, he might miss it. That's the idea. You be like an Eved. You be like an Eved, then you won't miss it, and you're going to reach where you're supposed to reach. There's a Medrash in Parshas Kisei Tzei, and the Medrash says that Hashem did not reveal to us the schar of mitzvahs. Only by Shiluach HaKen and by Kibbud of Ha'im, twice, it's like a very big mitzvah, and then a mitzvah that looks to us like a simple mitzvah. So it says, man, Yarichon Yemecho, and it says it's going to be good, Toivloch, and then the rest it doesn't say. And then the Medrash says, why didn't Hashem tell us each mitzvah what's the schar? Like today's days, people are very, very busy. For this mitzvah you'll get this school, or for this mitzvah you get this school. Why doesn't the Torah work like that? Like Rashi should say, and this you get parnosa, for this you get parnosa, for this. So the Medrash says, they're marshal to a king that had a beautiful paradise, orchard, and there was different types of trees, and it's huge. So you have a whole acres of apple trees, and you have everything, all kinds, and flowers, and the Melech told them, each person, you do this, you do that. The earth, do everything that's needed to keep it, to upkeep, and then afterwards, the Melech gave everybody a different type of schar. It means when it's finished, he said, okay, for these big trees you get kach dollars an hour or whatever, and for those trees you get less. And they came screaming and they said, you should have told us beforehand the difference in price. You should put a big sign there explaining. And the Melech said that was the whole point. Well, I needed that this whole orchard, everything should be done and it should be taken care of. And if I would have said that for this and this you get more money, everybody would just run there, and all the rest, nobody would do what they're supposed to be doing. That's the Medrash, and the Medrash says the same as with mitzvahs. Hashem doesn't say, so you have no choice, you have to do all the mitzvahs. Because if not, people would just run and they would do only, I don't know what, fill in the blank. They would say Parshas Hamon, or they would go to the Pshaila. They would only do that, and then the rest they wouldn't do. So I don't tell you, so you just do everything. You just do everything. That's an interesting Medrash. What is it, a trick? That means Hashem has to work with us this way, because if not, it sounds a little bit interesting. But if we think a bit deeper, then we could have a deeper understanding of that Medrash. Of course, the mitzvahs are needed for our neshama. The mitzvahs are needed for our neshama. A person has no idea what's going to bring him kiras elakim, what's going to bring him parnosa. He has no idea. The idea is that should turn you into a real Eved. That's the best thing that could be for a person. When the Medrash says that Hashem didn't reveal which schar, it means also which emotion and what's going to happen if I do this mitzvah, if I do that mitzvah. A person knows, I gotta do what I gotta do. And if they know they have to invest in this and they have to invest in everything. And that's the best thing that could be for them, because if not, if Kibbutz Elokim would be something that we could just purchase, we could just purchase that feeling of closeness to Hashem. So a person would do it, and even if they would do it with Ruchnius, they wouldn't reach where they're supposed to be doing. They would say, okay, so if I do 30 daf Gemara, can I get 2.5 pounds of Kibbutz Elokim? Does that work? So no problem, I'll do Gemara. If you could control it, then you're not a real Eved. A real Eved knows, Al Teshamshu as Almanas L'Kabel Pras. Kibbutz Elokim is a pras. Kibbutz Elokim is a matona. Shabbos, it's a matona, that part. It's very important to understand it. No, we don't always feel it, even if we have achnoah. Because if we would, then we wouldn't have full achnoah. It's a tricky game. If we would, then it means it wouldn't be so different than a person that enjoys apples, so he goes and he invests and he buys apples. So a person is in a higher level, so he enjoys Kibbutz Elokim, so he does it and he knows, if I do this, I get that. Even though it's beautiful that he's investing it in Ruchnius, it's really beautiful and amazing. But we're talking about Achnoah. And when we're talking about Achnoah, it means we're looking for something that's, I do what I gotta do. Sometimes I lose, sometimes I gain, sometimes I don't want to do it, and I do it anyways, because you gotta do what you gotta do. That's the idea of a heat. That's a heat. He keeps on trucking. Now the secret is, if you keep on trucking, I don't tell you when, but if you're serious about it, and you're emotionally involved with Hashem, that you're doing it with the right machshavas, you will get there. You will get there, but it could take time. It could take time, and a person has to test themselves constantly if they're having the proper achnoah, the right achnoah. It's sometimes tricky, because there's sometimes a person is testing himself and they're really not really doing it the way they're supposed to, but that's the idea. It also explains an interesting thing. People go through various types of hardships in their life. A lot of times a person went through a hardship and they were like, okay, so that was my Nisoyan L'chaim. So I was like, I'm done. I think from now it's just going to be, because people don't know, but I really went through a hardship. And then they're a bit surprised and very shocked and terribly disappointed, devastated, and a big one comes, a bigger one, even a bigger one. And, one of the guilty feelings that constantly come up is like, I'm such a big Rasha, like, why did I deserve this? And it's a mistake. It's a total mistake to think like that. But one of the ways to understand what's happening, one of the ways is, you could sometimes watch kids playing hide and go seek. And so let's say the kids are aged 11 or 10 and 9, so they're smarter, and one kid goes and counts till 10 or 100 or whatever it is, and they go running all around. Little kids are like 4 years old, they go hide, but they will constantly go into the same place. Like if you went under the bed, they'll go under the bed. No surprise involved. That's where they go. And it just ruins the game. It means there's no excitement. You just have to make believe that you... And it's a very interesting idea. When you talk about Hashem hides. Hashem hides. It means it got dark. You were like sailing straight and Baruch Hashem, successful, and all of a sudden the lights closed. Sometimes you reach a highway, there's no lights, and you have to turn on the brights. You have to drive carefully. If it's raining, forget about it. You're like driving and it's really dark. And you're driving, and you think you figured it out. Now, if you figured it out, then that highway you already know where there's a steep turn. You know what's going on. Hashem never hides in the same way. Never. It always is going to be different, because if then you don't know how to find them. That means you already know. This I know. And it's as many people as there are in the world. That's how many situations there are, and that's how many ways Hashem has how to hide from a person. There isn't any boundaries to that. Every time there's another chiddush. There's another chiddush. People that went through hardships of, even if they had, people have many children. One child had infertility. It was really, really tough. And then I tested that another child of theirs is having hardships. So there's the feeling of like, not again. I'm starting again this whole journey. I don't have koich for this anymore. But even more than that, it's not the same journey. Not the same journey. But this child, it was this, and the other child, they tried it, and it also didn't work. It also didn't work. And they lost that hope, and then now they have to so what do I do now? This doctor that helped me then can't help me now. It's in a person's life, now, it's not made that a person has to go through all these yisurim. No. Has to go through all these situations. It doesn't have to come very, very painful. That's why a lot of times the Gemara says that if a person invests in learning, in type of learning that's yisurim, that means that they push themselves far, and it's not their level, but they're pushing, so they really could change that thing, because they don't know how they're going to do it, and they could be experiencing that experience through Torah. We don't know all cheshbonos, but we know this as a fact in Chazal, that a person could do this Torah instead. But the idea that I'm trying to bring out is that when a person is looking to strike, then they also never finish, and they always fall, and they're always trying to climb. And when they finish one milchama with Yetzer Hara, all of a sudden a bigger one comes. But they take the chizik because they know, I'm in for the fight. I didn't think there's not going to be bullets flying. And they get up and they get hurt. Sometimes they get hurt and they get up again and they ask Hashem for help. And they mechazik themselves with simcha. It's not a pleasant journey. But if they have the simcha behind them, and that simcha comes from that they know that this is good, I wanted this is what I wanted. Sometimes you have mothers of little children that they're really not coping. They're seriously not coping. But in a good moment, they say, I wanted this. I didn't want to be bored. I really, really begged and asked for this, and I'm not coping. It doesn't mean that a second later they're coping. It means that they have their underliner. They have that remembering. I'm not falling apart. Not because I'm not coping, it means that I'm falling apart. I'm not falling apart at all. The house is flying, and one kid is screaming. And that idea is, men should learn. Men should learn from them this concept when they're in the fight. A struggle to survive, but not a struggle to survive, because a struggle to survive in steiging. It's not working out. B'chlal not working out exactly like they wanted. But I wanted this. This is what I wanted. So it's messy and whatever, but I'm continuing on. Yeah, it's not, the journey is not that if you're going to just do this 1, 2, 3, 4, you're just going to be living in Gan Eden and that's it. You're just sitting in there. No. And it doesn't contradict anything that we spoke about. Because slowly when a person starts climbing the ladder, they feel more and more the Kibbutz Elokim more often. And even when they don't, it's not total depression. It's knowing what's happening. It's knowing what's going on. When people live in clarity, even though they're not actually right now licking ice cream, but if they're living in clarity, it really helps them. It keeps them upbeat. It keeps them going. We can't forget that the original plan of this world was Hayoim la'asoysam u'mochor l'kabel schorim, which means Olam Hazeh is the place that we were sent here to work, not to get schar. And in Olam Haba, that's when we have that closeness with Hashem and Gan Eden and Olam Haba and that whole thing. Hashem was nice enough to us to give us a glimpse, to give us a Shabbos, to give us a Yom Kippur, to give us so many beautiful, beautiful times. And a person could take those, the flashes of light and work with it and be experiencing much more often and deeper. And if their Shabbos gets elevated and all of a sudden they feel in their weekday what they used to feel on Shabbos, but it's still Olam Hazeh. The Mishnah says, there's certain things you get schar in Olam Hazeh, but it's Peirusayim Olam Hazeh. That means it's only the fruit. Keren Kayem as Olam Haba, the main part is up there. But when we know this, then a person knows not to get depressed or upset or feeling terrible that they're not feeling this kirvas Elokim, because even if a person has bitochen, and even if a person is doing everything right in the davening and they have a chanoah, it doesn't necessarily mean that you know when and if, but it's there. It's there, and one day you're going to feel it. It also explains when one more aspect that a person should know. A person has to know that a person that has a certain feeling at a certain time, people think, oh, I'm going to go back there and then I'm going to feel it again. They go to this cave of this tzaddik, or they go, then I was flying. You don't know what I felt. I can't miss it. Then they go back and nothing. That's the idea. A person just has to know beforehand. If you could do that, if it's just about taking a flight over to here and there, then that's not one time you're going to have it. It was on Shabbos. The other day you're going to have it because you were in the doctor's office and nothing was working out. Every time it's going to be different. But you should be there as an Evet. If not, you're going to be missing it. You be an Evet, and it's going to come to you, and it's going to come deeper, and the more a person works, they get a bigger grip, a deeper grip. Okay. Siyata Dishmaya.
Melech Biron said